You feel it every time you stand at the checkout. The receipt grows longer, the bag grows lighter, and the money leaves your hand faster than it ever did. The herbs cost more than the meat once did. A small box of berries, a fistful of fresh ginger, a tiny jar of one red spice, each one priced as though it were rare. And so you pay, and pay again, and tell yourself there is nothing to be done about it. And all the while, the soil outside your door, the bed by the fence, the corner of the field, the shelf by the window, sits empty, waiting. The very things you are bleeding money to buy are things the earth will hand you for the price of a seed and a season's patience. Some you can grow to feed yourself and stop the bleeding, and some, a precious few you can grow to sell, and turn that same small patch of ground into a quiet, honest income. I am Morphix, old as the roots, wise as the soil. Let me show you what the land has always known. Today, I will walk you past 14 plants that put money back in your hands. Some by saving what you'd have spent, some by earning what you'd never have dreamed a backyard could earn. Most need no farm. A bed, a tunnel, a woodlot, even a shelf will do. And I'll do something rare. I want something the get-rich-growing sellers never will. I'll give you the real numbers, the ones the universities and the growers actually measured. And I'll tell you the honest catch behind every one. The labor, the years of waiting, the need to find a buyer before you plant. I don't sell dreams of easy money. The land pays well, but it pays those who work and wait. That is the only kind of wealth it has ever known. Stay with me to number 7. A woodland root that funded Appalachian families for 250 years and helped make Daniel Boone his fortune. Because what a shaded patch of forest floor can be worth may be the most surprising thing you hear today. And number 14 is the one with the deepest roots of all. The plainest, most accessible plant on this entire list. The one that fed nations through their hardest years. And what it does for a household's freedom from the grocery shelf is, in its own quiet way, the most valuable lesson of them all. I'll bring you to both. But first, hold this in your mind. The single most valuable crop on earth, by weight, grows from a humble bulb you could plant in a milk crate. One stubborn fact makes almost everyone quit on it. We start there. If this knowledge belongs in your life, tap subscribe and stay rooted, because the rooted aren't just subscribers. They're the ones who carry this knowledge forward. Number 1. Saffron, the red gold. We begin with the crown, and with the catch that comes with it. You think saffron is something grown on vast estates, in faraway lands, far beyond anything you could attempt. You think too small. Crocus sativus, a fall-blooming crocus, and the spice is nothing but the 3 red threads at the heart of each flower. I watched women gather these threads on the island of Thera, in the Aegean, 1600 years before your common era. Their work painted on the walls of Akrotiri, harvesting the crimson stigmas for a seated goddess. In 15th century Nuremberg, the trade was so precious that a merchant caught cheating it with false threads could be fined, imprisoned, even put to death under a law written for that one spice alone. The mechanism of its worth is simple. It is the most expensive spice on earth by weight, and it grows in almost no space at all. Think of each corm as a coin that mints more coins. Every year one bulb becomes several, and your planting stock multiplies underground for free. Now the honest numbers, and they are well measured. Researchers at the University of Vermont found saffron returned about $4.03 of net revenue per square foot, more than tomatoes, more than wintergreens, on the same ground. Retail. The dried threads fetch around $5,000 a pound. Growers selling direct get $25 to $75 a gram. the largest grower in North America farms, but a quarter of an acre. And here is the catch that makes 9 in 10 people give up. The catch I promised you. Every thread is picked by hand. At dawn, flower by flower, and plucked the same day before it spoils. There is no machine. The growing is easy. The harvest is patient, finger-cramping work. This is not passive money. One sharp warning. Plant only true culinary Crocus sativus. Never confuse it with the autumn crocus, colchicum. That one is poison. The action. Plant the corms in late summer, 6 inches deep. A light harvest the first autumn, more the next. Pick at dawn. Pull the 3 red threads that same day. Dry them. Lift and divide every 4 years. And your one bed becomes many. Number 2. Ginger and turmeric, the tunnel treasure. You think these tropical roots can only come from across the sea, trucked in dry and old. Not so. And the fresh kind sells for a price the dry never could. Zingiber officinale and curcuma longa. I watched these rhizomes carried along the old spice roads out of Asia, prized for the table and the medicine chest across 100 generations. The money mechanism is scarcity and multiplication. Almost no one near you grows fresh baby ginger, so the local price runs high. And a piece of seed rhizome multiplies 8 to 12 times over a single season. The measured numbers are good. Fresh baby ginger brings $16 to $20 a pound at market. A grower study from Missouri found that 30 pounds of seed rhizome, about $255 worth, yielded enough from a single 100-foot row to sell for nearly $4,000 to almost $6,000. That is real, and it is repeatable. The catch: these are tropical plants, and in most climates they need the warmth of a high tunnel and a long season, which ties up your best protected space for months. And the clean seed rhizome sells out early. You must order it by late autumn. No safety worry here beyond honest expectation. The lush 2 crore an acre figures you'll see online are from Indian monsoon farms and have nothing to do with your row. The action: sprout the seed rhizomes in warmth in February. Plant out in spring once the soil warms. Feed them heavily and hill them up. Harvest the tender baby rhizomes about 6 months on and sell them fresh to the chefs and the juicers who can't get them anywhere else. Number 3. Gourmet mushrooms, the shelf harvest. You think growing mushrooms takes a barn, a forest, or some secret no ordinary person holds. It takes a clean room and a closet. Pleurotus austriatus, the oyster. Lentinula edodes, the shiitake. I watched the people of Song Dynasty China master the growing of shiitake on logs 1,000 years ago. The oldest written record of it, set down in a county chronicle in the year 1209. The mechanism is speed and smallness. An oyster mushroom fruits in about 15 days, stacked on shelves, in a footprint smaller than a parking space. The numbers, measured by Cornell and by working growers, are strong but honest. Gourmet mushrooms wholesale for $7 to $14 a pound and sell direct to restaurants and markets for $16 to $24. A modest room turning 200 pounds a week can gross toward $100,000 a year. But hear me, costs eat 40 to 60% of that. So the true take is 40 to 60,000, and only with discipline. The catch is twofold. Contamination is the constant enemy. One careless batch, and the whole room turns to mold. And oysters flood a market fast and spoil within days. Your buyers, lined up before you grow, decide your profit, not your yield. No safety flag beyond the obvious. Grow only the known culinary and medicinal species, and never gamble on a wild look-alike. The action: begin with a simple kit or pre-made bag to learn the rhythm, then graduate to sterilized sawdust blocks. Hold the humidity high, the air fresh, the temperature cool, and find your chefs before you scale. Number 4. Microgreens, the windowsill wage. You think you need land to grow money. You need a shelf and 2 weeks. These are not sprouts. They are the young seedlings of pea, sunflower, radish, and broccoli, cut 7 to 14 days from sowing. They are a modern crop, but they carry the oldest logic of the intensive market garden: more value from each inch than from any field. And that logic once fed a nation. In the last Great War, by the year 1944, some 20 million victory gardens across America grew around 8 million tons of food, more than 40% of all the fresh vegetables the country ate. The power of small, dense growing is no new thing. The mechanism is the fastest turn of any crop. The same shelf can be harvested and resown 20 to 30 times a year. The numbers, from working growers, are striking. Microgreens sell for $20 to $40 a pound, and a tray costing a few dollars to grow sells for $15 to $45. Many growers report $25 to $50 of gross income per square foot every month. The catch: that money assumes a steady line of buyers every single week, and the greens spoil within days of cutting. Without restaurants or a market stall waiting, you grow a beautiful crop and watch it wilt. And a winter windowsill alone won't do it. You'll need grow lights and the electricity they cost. The action: sow thickly on trays, keep them dark 3 or 4 days, then bring them to light. Cut at 7 to 14 days. Sell to chefs, markets, and produce boxes, and never grow more than you've already promised away. Number 5. Lavender, the fragrant field. You think lavender is just a pretty scent for a sachet. It is a perennial that pays many ways from one planting. Lavandula, English lavender for the bud and the kitchen. Lavandine for the oil and the bundle. I watched the Romans scent their baths and their washing with it. Its very name comes from the Latin lavare, to wash, and the monks who kept its lore alive in their physic gardens through the long centuries after. The mechanism is multiplication of value. One low-input plant becomes dried bundles, then oil, then soaps and sachets. Then, for many farms, visitors who pay simply to walk the rows and take photographs. Here, I must be careful with the numbers, for this is where the hype runs wildest. You will hear $120,000 an acre. The University of Massachusetts says plainly that most American growers cannot reach that. The honest figure, from realistic estimates, is closer to $10,000 an acre in an average year, rising to perhaps $30,000 at its peak, through bundles and value-added goods, not raw oil, which pays little. America's lavender farms numbered over 1,300 at the last count, selling some $16 million of it between them. The catch: it takes about 3 years to reach full bloom. The harvest is hand-cutting work, and in wet, heavy soil the roots simply rot. It wants sun and sand and patience. The action: plant plugs in well-drained ground, full sun, first real harvest in year 3, peak around year 5, productive for a decade. Cut by hand, dry in bundles, and turn the surplus into soaps and sachets where the real margin lives. Gourmet garlic, the beginner's coin. You think garlic is the cheapest thing in the shop, not worth growing for money. The cheap garlic in the shop is not this garlic. Allium sativum, the hardneck kinds. Music, German extra hardy, the purple stripes. I watched garlic feed the workers who raised the Great Pyramids. The Greek historian Herodotus recorded it inscribed on the stone itself, and the old Egyptian medical scrolls list it 24 times over. The mechanism is a double gift. Gourmet and seed garlic sell for many times the price of the grocery bulb. and you replant your own best cloves. So after the first year, your seed costs nothing, and one clove becomes a whole head. The numbers are some of the friendliest on this list, and they're from the Extension Service. Hardneck garlic brings $16 to $25 a pound at market against $1 or $2 for the common kind. A Vermont study followed a quarter acre, about 5,000 plants, that grossed $12,500, with $3,000 in costs, leaving $9,500 of real net. And the greenscapes, snapped off in spring, sell for $3 to $5 a pound as a bonus crop. The catch: it wants cold winters to grow well. The first year's seed is a real expense, and weeding is long handwork. Above all, buy clean seed stock, for a pest called the bloat nematode can quietly end a garlic farm. The action: plant the cloves point up in autumn, harvest the next summer, cure them in the air. Then set aside your biggest, finest bulbs, not to eat, but to replant and to sell as seed garlic, where the best money is. Stop with me a moment. We are halfway through the field, and the most surprising are still to come. If this honest accounting, the real numbers and the real catches, the kind the easy money sellers always hide, has served you, then tap that like. It is how the others find their way to the green. And now, the woodland root I promised you near the start. Number 7. American ginseng, the green gold. This is the root I teased you with, and its story is the deepest in money and patience both. You think ginseng is something foreign, something from the far side of the world, but the most prized kind grows wild in the hardwood forests of eastern North America, on the shaded slopes, asking almost nothing of you but time. Panax quinquefolius. I watched it become a fortune. The frontiersman Daniel Boone made much of his money not from furs but from ginseng, and in 1784, a ship called the Empress of China sailed out of New York carrying some 30 tons of this American root to China, one of the very first exports of a brand new nation. For 250 years it has funded the families of Appalachia from the forest floor. The mechanism is rare among money crops. It grows in the shade you already have, under your existing trees, with little tending, and the root grows more valuable the longer it ages in the ground. The numbers are remarkable. Ohio State's Extension Service worked it through. A single pound of seed plants, some 1,600 square feet, and if half survive the decade to maturity, you may harvest near 13 pounds of dried root. And dried wild simulated root sells for around $400 a pound, with truly wild root fetching $550 or more. North Carolina's wild ginseng trade alone brings over $3 million a year to more than 5,000 collectors. But here is the catch, and it is a hard one, the hardest on this list. You wait 7 to 10 years for that first harvest, and because a mature patch is worth so much, poaching is a genuine danger. Growers have lost a decade's work to thieves in a single night. The wild harvest is regulated in 19 states and restricted elsewhere. You must know your law. Take only mature roots in season and replant the seed. This is the long game of the patient. The action: sow stratified seed in autumn under a hardwood canopy on a shaded north slope. Sell leaves and seed in the earlier years for a little income while you wait. Dry the roots slowly on screens, never in sun or oven, and sell to a licensed, reputable buyer. Number 8. Elderberry, the hedgerow harvest. You think the elder is just a wild bush. Its berries good for nothing but the birds. Those berries, turned into syrup, are worth more than you'd guess. Sambucus canadensis, the American elder. I watched the people of this land gather it wild for centuries, for the table and for the winter remedy chest. In our own age, A Missouri farmer built a whole industry from his grandmother's elderberry jam recipe over 30 patient years. The mechanism is value through transformation. The raw berry is worth little, but processed into syrup it leaps in worth. A $2 pound of berries becomes $8 to $12 as bottled syrup. The numbers, from Missouri and Florida extension work, are solid. A mature acre yields 4,000 to 6,000 pounds and can gross $8,000 to $18,000 wholesale. More if you bottle it yourself. It reaches good production in just 2 to 4 years. Fast for a perennial. The catch: there is almost no market for the raw, fresh berry. You must process it, and the destemming is real labor, and the berry must never be eaten raw and uncooked. The market swings year to year, so a grower's co-op or your own syrup line is how you steady it. The action: plant cuttings. They root easily, with weed barrier and water. Harvest in late summer, destem, freeze fast, and either sell to a cooperative or, for the real margin, cook it into syrup yourself. Number 9. One-cut flowers. The bouquet money. You think flowers are a luxury, not a livelihood. A well-run flower bed earns more per square foot than almost any vegetable. Dahlias, sunflowers, zinnias. These carry on the old tradition of the cottage cutting garden and the pick-your-own patch. Only one beauty grown to be sold by the armful. The mechanism is high price per stem and a season-long harvest. Cut and come again annuals give more the more you pick, and a single bed of dahlias yields for 3 months. The numbers, reported by working flower farms, are strong. Bouquets sell for $15 to $30, dahlia stems for $2 to $6. One small farm grew $12,000 of flowers from 1,600 square feet in a single first year. Weddings and weekly bouquet subscriptions pay the best of all. The catch: flowers are perishable and labor-heavy, and one cutting, conditioning, bunching can eat half your costs. And you need a reliable local channel, for they cannot wait. And a late frost can take a season in a night. The action: sow after frost, succession plant every couple of weeks for continuous blooms. Stake the dahlias and cut at dawn at just the right stage. Sell as bouquets at market, as weekly subscriptions, and to the wedding trade. Number 10. All one. Christmas trees. The decade's patience. You think a tree farm is for the wealthy with land to spare. It can turn poor, marginal ground into a holiday harvest, the decade's patience measured in years. The Fraser fir, the Douglas, the balsam. I watched a man named Mark Carr open the first Christmas tree lot in New York City in 1851. Hauling wild firs down from the Catskills by ox sled Quan, and the first true tree farm planted 25,000 spruces in New Jersey in 1901. The mechanism is simple, slow, and steady. Marginal land you couldn't crop becomes worth thousands an acre, and once you stagger your plantings, you harvest a portion every single year. The numbers, from the agriculture census, are real. America cut over 14.5 million trees in a recent year, worth $553 million, from 16,000 farms. A mature operation can gross $15,000 to $50,000 an acre, netting perhaps $7,000 to $14,000 after costs. The catch, and it is large, is the wait. 8 to 10 years from seedling to a sellable 6-foot tree, all of it cost and no income. The market is local, for shipping mature trees is dear. This is no first project for a new grower. It is a long bet on patient ground. The action: plant cheap seedlings in spring, around 1,200 to the acre. Shear them yearly into shape. Plant 1/10 of your ground each year, so that once the first decade passes, every year brings a harvest. Number 11. Berries, the high markup fruit. You think berries are simply something you buy, wince at the price, and carry home. They are among the most expensive fruits in the shop, and among the most rewarding to grow. The raspberry, Rubus idaeus. The highbush blueberry, Vaccinium corymbosum. The berry patch is the classic homestead money saver. One community gardener recorded saving as much as $75 a week on groceries through the height of the raspberry season. The mechanism cuts both ways. Berries carry one of the steepest markups in all of produce, so growing your own saves dearly. And pick your own selling hands the harvest labor to your customer, solving the two great problems of berries at once. The numbers. 5 raspberry plants can yield around 12 pounds a season, near $100 of fruit from a $30 investment. A small raspberry planting can return $1,000 a year. Pick your own berries sell for $2 to $4 a pint, and a mature blueberry acre yields 10,000 pounds. The catch: blueberries make you wait and even lose money for the first several years before they turn a profit, and they demand acidic soil to live at all. And every berry is perishable. Without pick your own or an instant sale, much of it spoils. The action: plant raspberry canes a couple of feet apart. For blueberries, set 2 varieties together for pollination in properly acid soil. Mulch them, trellis the raspberries, and let your customers do the picking. Number 12. Heirloom tomatoes, the two-way crop. You think a tomato is a tomato. The heirloom is a different animal, and it earns at the market and saves at home in the same breath. Solanum lycopersicum, the old saved kinds. Cherokee purple, brandywine. These are varieties handed down 50 years and more. Cherokee purple traces back to the Cherokee Nation in Tennessee over a century ago. They were the heart of the Victory Garden, the single most grown crop of those lean years. The mechanism is double again. Heirlooms sell at a premium the bland shop tomato never could, and growing your own from saved seed costs almost nothing, for the seed of next year sits inside this year's fruit. The numbers are plain and friendly. Heirlooms sell for $3 to $6 a pound at market, while grown from your own seed, they cost you well under $1 a pound. A single cherry tomato plant can give 6 pounds of fruit, nearly $40 worth, from one seed. The catch: heirlooms are thin-skinned and short-lived once picked, lower yielding and more prone to disease than the hybrids. And some customers still distrust a tomato that isn't red, and plant too many of one late kind, and they all ripen at once when the price is lowest. The action: start seed indoors 6 weeks before your last frost. Transplant when it's warm, stake them tall, and save the seed from your finest fruit so you never buy it again. Number 13. Culinary herbs, the best bargain on earth. You think fresh herbs are just a small expense. Add up a year of those little plastic clamshells, and you'll see the quiet fortune you hand away. Basil, mint, cilantro, and the perennials. Thyme, oregano, rosemary, chives. These were the very heart of the medieval monastery's physic garden. The same plants the monks grew for medicine and flavor both, the cheapest of all to raise. The mechanism is the best savings to space ratio of anything that grows. Herbs cost dearly at the till and almost nothing in the ground, and most regrow from a cutting, even from a grocery stem set in water. The numbers tell it plainly. Fresh basil runs $3 to $6 for a single ounce in a clamshell, against a $2 plant that gives all summer. One parsley plant replaces $25 to $40 of buying across its life. A documented herb bed turned $39 of seed and plants into nearly $200 of herbs in its first year. The catch: mint will conquer your whole garden if you let it. Keep it imprisoned in a pot. And a winter windowsill gives thin growth without a grow light. Selling fresh herbs for income means competing with cheap imports. So here, the surer win is the saving, not the sale. The action: sow basil and cilantro from seed, root mint and basil cuttings in a glass of water from the very stems you'd have bought. Plant the perennials once and harvest them for years. Pinch often to keep them giving. Number 14. The staple crops, the root of all freedom. And here is the one with the deepest roots of all. The plainest plant on this entire list, and for that very reason the most important. Not the dearest, not the rarest, the most essential. You think the humble potato, the patient asparagus bed, are too ordinary to matter beside saffron and ginseng. You have it exactly backwards. Solanum tuberosum, the potato. Asparagus officinalis, the perennial spear. These were the backbone of household survival. The crops of the victory gardens that fed 20 million families through war. The storehouse that carried whole peoples through their hardest winters. The mechanism here is not a high price at market. It is freedom, the deepest wealth the land offers. The potato regrows endlessly from its own saved tubers and stores for months in a cool, dark room. The asparagus bed, planted once, hands you spears every spring for 15, even 20 years from a single planting. You buy the seed once, and the earth pays you back season upon season, asking nothing more. The honest accounting: these will not make you rich in coin. A sack of potatoes is cheap to buy, but that is not their wealth. Their wealth is that no shortage, no price spike, no empty shelf can touch the household that grows and stores its own staples. The asparagus, costing one planting and 3 years' patience, then feeds you free for 2 decades. That is a kind of money the receipt never shows. The money you simply never have to spend, year after year after year, for the rest of your life. The catch is only patience and humility. Asparagus gives nothing the first 2 years. You must let it root. Potatoes are cheap enough that the gain is your security and your seed saving, not a fortune. And never replant a store-bought potato treated to resist sprouting, nor any diseased stock. The action: plant asparagus crowns deep in a permanent bed, and wait until the 3rd spring to cut. Then harvest each spring for 20 years. Plant seed potato pieces with 2 good eyes. Hill them as they grow, harvest, cure, and save your best to plant again. This is where true self-reliance begins. Not with the rarest crop, but with the one you never have to buy again. So here is the truth beneath the title, the one I most want you to carry. You hold far more quiet power over your own money than the loud world admits. The fortune is not in some scheme or some far-off field. It is in the soil by your door, in the seed in your hand, and in the patience to let the two work together. Let me pass them by you one last time. The saffron, red gold, richest by weight, paid for in dawn labor. The ginger and turmeric, fresh and scarce and high-priced from a single warm tunnel. The mushrooms, a fortune on a clean shelf if you master the cleanliness. The microgreens, the fastest money that grows if buyers wait. The lavender, the fragrant perennial that pays many ways. The garlic, the friendliest start, replanted free forever. The ginseng, green gold of the patient, a decade in the making. The elderberry, worth little raw, worth much as syrup. The cut flowers, more per bed than near any vegetable. The Christmas trees, a long bet on poor ground. The berries, high markup saved and sold by the pickerful. The heirloom tomato, premium sold and saved from its own seed. The herbs, the best bargain that grows. And the staples, the deepest wealth of all, the freedom to never buy them again. Sort them in your mind, the ones for real income: saffron, ginseng, mushrooms, microgreens, garlic, ginger, lavender, elderberry, flowers, trees, and the ones for true self-reliance. The money you never spend, the berries, the tomatoes, the herbs, the staples. The first kind fills a pocket. The second kind sets you free. Most of you should begin with the second. Don't try to grow all 14 next spring. That is the dreamer's way, not the grower's. Pick one, perhaps two, that answer what your ground and your purse are asking. If you have only a windowsill, the herbs, the microgreens. If you have a bed, the garlic, the saffron, the tomatoes. If you have shade and trees and patience, the ginseng. Start there. Start small. Be consistent. Give it a season, then another. For wealth from the land grows the way the land does. Slowly, quietly, and only for those who keep faith with it. Riches were never a single harvest. They were always a patient hand, returning to the same good soil, year upon year. And one last honest word, the most important of all, line up your buyer before you grow to sell, and never plant more than you can tend or sell or store. The land rewards the realistic, not the greedy. It always has. I've set these 14 plants, their real numbers, their catches, and the path to growing each one, into a keeper's scroll, the Forgotten Roots Records, free for you below. Receive it, study it, and choose your ground well. If this knowledge belongs in your life, tap subscribe and stay rooted. The rooted are not subscribers. The rooted are those who carry this knowledge forward, the way it's been carried for 1,000 generations. Share it with someone who needs it. Drop a comment and tell me which one surprised you most. And I'll be here, where I've always been, waiting in the green,